Hello, the Newcomer, page 22. September 24th, 1987. I realize that I may sound bitter. You'll have to pardon me. I have just discovered a new development. You see, all of those sperm samples were only for testing, if you catch my drift. The new development is that our weakened sperm no longer exists outside of the human body, not even after it has been frozen. Now how's that for the advent of stud service? As soon as Troy walked in the door, Rachel told him about the meeting that night. At dinner, she brought up the subject that had brought her home so early from the hospital. Troy, I need to talk to you something, she said, kicking the peas around her plate with a fork. Troy looked up from his dinner. Have I done something wrong? He asked, hoping that she was bringing up their missed lunch dates. When his tone revealed that she'd opened the topic for him, Rachel looked up from her plate. Yes, I've been wondering why you've been missing our lunch dates, she said, knowing that he knew that she knew that he wanted her to know. You know, don't you? He asked. Damn it, Troy, she said, dropping her fork onto the plate in disgust. Why didn't you just come out with it? My hormones can't take these games. I'm sorry, Rachel. I didn't feel that it was so important until now. Okay, fine. So, what's so important now? Troy looked down at his cold food. Or should I ask, who is it now? Without looking up, he said, Deborah Dixon. Well, Rachel said, rising from the table, I guess that it's time to have a chat with Miss Dixon. She began clearing the dinner dishes. Troy stood up also. Do you think that that's a good idea? He asked. She won't cause any trouble, Rachel called from the kitchen. I'll have to. If I have to, I'll bring it up before the board, she said, coming back into the dining room. Aren't the members of the board members of the illustrious coven too? He went into the kitchen. Rachel followed him. Some of them are, she said, entering the kitchen, but that doesn't matter, she said, then started the dishwasher. Troy accompanied Rachel to Deborah's house. After a hug of support, they got out of her car and walked up to the front door. Rachel, Deborah exclaimed, opening the door. I'm so relieved that you made it, she said, and gave Rachel a hug. Over her shoulder, Deborah saw the waving Troy. Stepping back from the embrace, she said, It's good to see you too, Troy, but I'm afraid that this is a meeting for women only. Rachel was perturbed by the concept and said so. To this, Deborah replied, I'm sure that he'll fill out a place in the room of gossiping biddies. Nonsense, Rachel said. Troy enjoys women's views. I'm sure he does, Deborah agreed, giving different meaning to her words. Patting Rachel on her back to usher her into the side, she turned and spoke to Troy through a crack of the closing door. The meeting will be over at 9:30, she said, then closed and bolted the door. Resisting the urge to kick the door down, he stood before it, cursing the woman before leaving. He drove around for 2 hours, rehearsing his speech to Rachel. It was obvious that something permanent was to be done about the controlling Deborah Dixon. Arriving back at the door at the appointed time, he knocked. With the impact of his fist, the door pushed open. He called into the darkened house. There was no answer. Cautiously, he entered the dark foyer, searching through the darkness, calling Rachel's name. Upon reaching what he surmised was the meeting room, he was grabbed, and he felt the caustic sting of a needle as it jabbed through his thin jacket into his arm. A confused and angry Troy slumped into waiting arms as the drug took effect. Swirling faces of naked women encircled Troy's clouded perception, while oiled hands massaged his naked body. 2 breasts blocked his view of the dancing faces. While the naked breasts dangled before him, his anus burned with penetration. The breasts lowered, and the women who owned them sat down on his uninvited erection. The finger in his anus tickled his prostrate, causing his manipulated body to explode inside the woman who straddled it. The scene played before him over and over. Same faces swirled, different breasts lowered. He woke to find himself in his own bed, struggling to rise, but he fell back onto the bed. Hours later, he woke with the dawn. Rachel was in the shower. While using the toilet, he remembered his dreams. After finishing, he called into the shower. "Rachel, what is going on?" The shower stopped, the curtain drew back, and Ms. Dixon stood naked before him. Words of explanation seethed Troy's aching brains. Candy-coated self-sacrifice and more obligatory descriptions of what gone down weren't the truth. He had been drugged and then raped repeatedly. "If you had just played along," Deborah said while applying her makeup, "then all this wouldn't have been necessary." She inserted the mascara back into its case and twisted it shut. Rachel was opposed in the beginning, but she understood in time and participated by the time you arrived. "That's bullshit," he yelled, starting towards his third neck. Deborah turned to face him. "Is it now?" she said, snaking her fingers through his to bring his arms down to his side. "Whose finger do you think it was," she asked, "that wiggled and jiggled and tickled inside of you?" He turned away, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Deborah had been lying. She was whacked and out of control. That's why Rachel had played along that night. He knew what he had to do. Deborah stood before him, massaging his shoulders before getting dressed. "I'm glad that you see the logic in our ways. It won't be long before the country discovers what we have known for years." Troy remained turned from the female, biting the inside of his cheek to keep from strangling the bitch. "You misunderstand that we worked in vain to come up with a cure that is attacking our male population." Her words slithered between her teeth like a badly acted vampire's. "We're a college town, a medical one at that," she explained, allowing her hands to ripple his lower back muscles. "We have plenty of experts and equipment at our disposal. When the disease spreads, we'll be prepared for the crisis. In the meantime, what's wrong with a little fun?" She answered her question with a nibble on Troy's neck. He didn't entirely understand what she was talking about. He just knew he didn't like it, and he definitely didn't like her. His reflexes were so challenged that blood trickled from the inside of his cheek. Deborah turned away, grabbed her purse, and left him standing in his bedroom. "Don't worry about Rachel," Deborah called from the front door. "She and the baby are doing fine." Troy clenched his fists. "As soon as we can trust you, she'll be back." The door closed and Troy's fist sailed into the bedroom wall. It was 7:30. Troy was late for work. He called his boss to tell him that he wouldn't be in. His boss was sympathetic to Troy's lie, as he'd been feeling under the weather too. Sitting down with his coffee, Troy perfected his plan. He'd clean out their savings account, making a big fuss about furnishing the baby's room, then he and Rachel would leave this town of lunatics.